Hi, in this chapter I'll share some introductory knowledge about this opening, and then I'll show you some of the games that made me fall in love with this opening when I started learning it. So the King's India defense is a response to 1d4, where black develops the king side quickly, fianchettos the dark square bishop, and allows white to build a strong central presence, with the goal of later counter-attacking and launching active play, oftentimes on the king side. So the first couple of moves look like this: d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, and d6. To give you a brief historical background before we jump to the games, between the 40s and 70s, players like Bronstein, Grigorich, and Fischer popularized the King's Indian defense and showed its dynamic potential. Between the 80s and the 90s, Kasparov used it pretty successfully in top-level events, including World Championship matches. And in the modern era, it still remains a powerful weapon used by players such as Nakamura, Radjabov, Firuza, Rapport, either as a mainstay or a surprise weapon. The first games that I selected are games of Bronstein. And the first game that I want to show you is the game that he played in 1956. And the game looks like this: d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, f3. This system is called the Semish system, and it used to increase the strength of white center while preparing some kingside initiative for later. Black immediately strikes in the center with e5, white defended with knight g2, short castle, bishop e3, knight b to d7, queen d2. As we can see, white is still maintaining the tension in the center. He hasn't played d5 yet, he didn't take on e5 either. a6, g4, and finally black is the one eliminating the tension with e takes d4. White played knight d4, and now a really interesting positional move, the move c5. Apparently the move c5 might seem to be a weakening move, because as we can see, we have a backward pawn on d6 and now an outpost for white's pieces on the d5. But in the King's Indian, it's a lot about dynamics, and the control of the d4 square offers a lot of prospects for black in the future, and you will see why. Knight e5, threatening knight f3, and white played the move bishop to e2, defending the pawn. At this point, black played the move bishop to e6, which is a great move, a normal developing move that also creates an attack on c4. But at the same time, black could have played a better move than bishop e6, which was the move b5. This is a typical dynamic idea that uses the fact that black's king is castled while white's king is still uncastled. So black is trying to play for the initiative with moves like b5, offering a pawn sacrifice, which, if white accepts, he will find himself in a really complicated situation after bishop takes g4, f takes g4, and knight to e4, attacking the queen on d2, followed by queen h4. Here black has more than compensation for the piece. Back to what happened in the game. So bishop e6, knight a3, knight f to d7, long castle, and once again the move b5. So black is willing to open up the queen side so he can target the enemy's king. C takes b5, a takes b5, knight takes b5, and here black had once again something better than what he did in the game. In the game he played c4, which is still a very logical and strong move, but he could have played the move bishop takes a2 instead, which not only brings the bishop closer to the attack, but also prevents the king from running to b1. For example, after queen d6, we can play rook to a4 with ideas like queen a8 followed by rook b8, and suddenly all the black pieces are attacking on the queen side. Black played c4 instead, queen takes d6, queen a5, bishop d4, rook fc8. Still, black's position is amazing. Bishop to c3, and now knight d3, bishop takes, bishop c3, knight c3, pawn takes d3, rook takes d3, and knight to e5. He managed to open the c file as well, even though he's down 3 pawns at the moment. The attack is too powerful for white to be able to handle it. Rook e3, rook d8, queen e7, rook d7, queen f6, queen c5, knight c2, check, white took, rook takes d3, queen f2, rook e1, and after rook d2, white just gave up because he's about to lose even more material. Another game by Bronstein, this time played in 1947. We have a different move order. This time we have a classical variation from the King's Indian defense. Knight bd7, short castle e5, bishop g5, h6, bishop e3, c6, h3, rook e8. Once again we see that white tried to maintain the tension as much as possible, but now there is a threat of e takes d4 followed by knight takes to e4, which made white to play the move d5. After d5 there are several ways for black to react. He decided to simply push past and create this type of closed center position. Queen to d2, king h7, g4, knight g8. Now you'll see that the game gets really interesting because of black's maneuvering ideas. King h2, knight f8, opening the bishop to support the f7 f5 break, but at the same time he has also another thing in mind about the knight from f8. Bishop d3, king h8, rook g1, knight h7. Now the knight is ready to go to g5 at some point if he wants to. It also fights against the g4 g5 push from white. Rook to g2, bishop to d7, knight e2, queen f6, and white played the move king to g3, which I found a bit dubious, and I believe it's a beginning of the beginning of a bad plan for white. the king will become quite exposed in the next couple of moves. Rook f8. As we can see, he slowly is preparing the break f7, f5, h4, queen e7, queen c2, and now knight to f6, targeting g4. It seems like white is managing to defend the pawn in time, but actually knight takes g4. And after knight g4, black is winning the piece back with f5. Knight e5, d5, f4, knight f6, rook h1, takes on e4, takes on e4, takes on f4, queen e4, rook e8, and black is simply a piece up, and white had to resign. And the last game from Bronstein, we have once again the classical setup by white, this time the Makogonov system with h3, e5. As we can see, Bronstein hasn't castled yet. He decided to play knight d7, e5 quickly. Bishop e3, takes on d4, knight d4, short castle. And now quite a weird move by white. He played the move knight to e2, delaying the possibility of short castle or long castle, depending on which side he decides to go to, which definitely favors black, as we will see. Rook to e8, queen to c2, knight c5, f3. Now most of white's pawns are on the light squares, which means that maybe in the future white will struggle with the control of the dark squares. Queen e7, long castle, c6, bishop f4, targeting the weakness on d6. And at this point black had a typical reaction, typical in this pawn structure where the e and the d pawns have disappeared, and the move is d5. It looks like a pawn sacrifice, which indeed it is, but we will see that black has a lot of compensation for this sacrifice. A sample variation could go like this: knight d5, knight d5, rook d5, b6, bishop d6, queen f6, knight c3, bishop e6, rook d1, rook c8, and for example we are preparing rook d6 targeting the bishop from rook d8 targeting the bishop from d6. We'll see that our pieces are exerting a lot of pressure on white's queen side, and this is definitely more than compensation for black. Going back to the game, because instead of d5, black went for the rook d8 move, g4, bishop to e6, knight g3, and now he went for the d5 break. White played g5, black played d4, knight a4, takes, knight d7, queen a5, b6, queen a4, knight e5, bishop to d3, and once again a nice attacking idea, as we have seen in the previous example, the move b5, cb5, cb5, bishop b5, queen to c5. So black managed to open the C and the B files, and he's ready to create a decisive attack against the white's king. King b1, rook b8, bishop e5, bishop e5, f4, rook b5, knight e2, rook b8, rook d2, and after rook a5, white just resigned. The next player that I want to show you is Fischer, and we have also 3 games played by Bobby Fischer. The first one is a very famous one, where in this position where black typically plays the move d6, he decided to castle short, inviting white to play the move e5, which is a bit risky, as we will see in the game as well. White played it, knight e8, and he played the move f4. So it looks like white has managed to gain a lot of space in the center and great control of the position, but black is better developed and he will quickly strike in the center, as we will see in the game. d6, bishop e3, and now c5. He fully strikes in the center with 2 pawn breaks. d takes e5, and now knight to c6. He's playing for the initiative. He doesn't care about material. He just wants to develop his pieces and try to take advantage of the fact that white's king is still in the center. c takes d6, c takes d6, and now a very important mistake from white's side. He played the move knight to e4, which basically loses too much time in the opening. Bishop f5, knight g3, bishop e6, knight f3, and of course black doesn't want to trade the queens now. He played the move queen to c7, and white played queen to b1, which of course prepares the f5 break, but at the same time, once again, the king is still weak. So d takes e5, white played the move f5, black played e4, f takes e6, e takes f3, gf3, f5, threatening the fork, white defended, and now knight f6. So suddenly only the rook from a8 needs to join the game, so that black has all the pieces ready to attack. The e file is about to open because the e6 pawn is too weak, and it is about to fall. White played bishop to e2, rook e8, king f2, rook e6, rook e1, rook e8, and bishop to f3. And what makes this game very famous is the following tactical sequence that maybe you can try to find it on your own. You can pause the video and try to use it as a tactical exercise. And the tactical sequence looks like this: rook e3, rook e3, rook e3, king e3, and a nice tactical idea, queen takes f4, where if white takes the queen, bishop h6 is simply checkmate. And at this point white resigned. Next game, also played by Bobby Fischer. We have a fianchetto system this time for white, with e4, d6, knight e2, e5, castle short, knight b d7, knight c3, c6, queen to c2, rook e8, and white played rook to e1. So once again, white is trying to maintain the tension in the center as much as possible, but this is not always the best idea to do, as we will see in this example as well. Here black played the move a6, but instead of playing a6 at this point, he could have played something significantly better. E takes d4, knight e4, knight b6, b3, and now he can take advantage of this pin by using the typical pawn break d5, and suddenly black has a better position. Instead of this idea, he played a6. He's controlling b5, maybe willing to play b7, b5 later on. a4, a5, and white played the move f3. This f3 move is a mistake. It's weakening the dark squares and also falling into a tactical idea. The tactical idea looks like this. E takes d4, knight takes d4, queen b6, knight e2, and now the move that Fischer played in the game, knight takes e4, which, by the way, it's not the best in the position. The best idea would have been to play d5 here once again. So not winning the pawn, but striking in the center, and the idea looks like this. C takes d5, and now knight takes d5, very important. It opens the bishop, attacks d4, rook d1, knight e5, sacrificing the knight, but now bishop f5, queen c3, knight d3, threatening to take on e2, and if king f1, we still take on e2, followed by rook e8, bishop takes d4, and black is simply having a winning position. But what Fischer did in the game is also very good. Knight takes e4, pawn takes, bishop d4 takes, queen d4, bishop e3, queen f6, and from this point he just managed to convert his material advantage pretty comfortably. Knight e5, queen e7, bishop g4, queen e6, bishop h3, queen g4, and knight f3, and now he manages to take advantage of the weak light squares, threatening queen f1 mate, queen to d1, winning another pawn, and after rook to d6, he's just winning after queen e1, rook e1, rook e8, threatening rook f1, and after bishop h6 he just played the move rook f1 with mate. And another game by Fischer, this time against a very strong opponent, Viktor Korchnoi. We have the classical variation, the so-called Mar del Plata, d5, knight e7, knight d2, and here black decided to go c5, fully closing the center. In this type of positions, black is trying to slow down white's queenside play and start focusing on his own play on the king side. a3, knight e8, b4, b6, rook b1, f5. f3, and now f4. This is how a typical kingside attack in the King's Indian looks like. a4, g5, a5, rook f6, takes on c5, takes on c5, knight b3, rook g6, bishop d2. As we can see, white's queenside play is too slow, and black is already preparing to fully open the kingside. Knight f6, king h1, and finally g4. Pawn takes, knight g4, rook f3, rook h6, h3, knight g6, king g1, knight f6, bishop to e1. So white is trying to establish a defensive setup, but at this point black found a really nice solution to deal with it. And he found the following maneuver: knight h8, rook d3, knight f7, bishop f3, knight g5, queen e2, rook to g6, king f1, and finally the tactical blow, knight h3, pawn takes, bishop takes, king f2, knight g4, and after bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4, white simply resigned because queen h4 is about to arrive. The following game is actually the main game that made me fall in love with this opening. So I remember back when I was started learning it, my coach at that time gave me a very valuable advice that I still use every time I'm trying to build a repertoire around an opening. He told me, go search for all the games that Kasparov played in the King's Indian defense, follow all the hundreds of games that he played, and then you might be ready to start memorizing the moves, and you'll definitely understand better what is going to happen over the board. And that was actually the case. And this game caught my attention a lot. It's a game played between Karpov and Kasparov in 1993. It was a Samish, bishop e3, e5, one of the favorite setups by Kasparov against the Samish, c6, knight e7, rook d1, a6, d takes e5. Compared to the other examples, we see that this time white decided to capture on e5 himself instead of letting black to capture on d4. He opens the d file, targeting the weakness on d6. But here it's really important not to take with the pawn and not to fear the fact that we have a weak pawn on the d6 square. It's more important to have the initiative, to fight for dynamics, and you'll see how many tactical resources and attacking ideas black has. So knight takes e5. At the moment he's also targeting c4, so we don't need to be afraid of losing d6. But after b3, he played the move b5, still ignoring the fact that white can take on d6, which eventually happened. He first took on b5, a takes b5, and now queen to d6, targeting the queen and the knight from e5. Of course, it would be bad for black in this position to trade the queens off because he's down a pawn, and at the same time, if he wants to take advantage of the fact that the king is still in the center, he needs to maintain the queens on the board. So he played the move knight f to d7. f4, and now another very strong move, the move b4. Knight b1, knight to g4, bishop d4, takes, and now he manages to win the pawn back. But that's a very important pawn because black has managed to get a very active square for his rook. h3, trying to kick black's pieces away. He played the move c5, another strong move. Queen g1, knight f6 with tempo once again, e5, knight e4, h4, and now another strong attacking idea by black, the move c5 to c4. So by playing this move, he definitely attacks b3 and threatens the move c3. But for example, if white accepts the sacrifice, black is simply willing to play queen to a5, followed by b3 with a very strong attack against white's king. White played knight to c1, and maybe this was the exact moment that caught my attention when I was watching the game. The fact that all of the white's pieces are now on the first rank, which definitely says that white's opening and middle game went horribly wrong. c3, knight a2, c2, queen d4, takes on d1, king d1, knight c5, queen d8, rook d8, queen c2, king c2, and after knight f2, white simply resigned because there are too many threats. For example, if the rook moves away, for example g1, we have bishop f5. In case of king b2, black can play knight d1, king c1, and knight to b3 with mate. Next game by Kasparov. We have the classical variation, where here this time white plays the move d5. This is called the Petrosian variation. So once black strikes in the center with e5 and black refuses to maintain the tension and plays the move d5, it's called the Petrosian variation. a5, bishop to g5, h6, bishop h4, knight a6, knight e2, queen e8, short castle, knight h7, a3. So far everything is mainline theory, and at this point Kasparov chose to do something different than the typical response of black, which is bishop to d7, threatening to play a4, and after b3 black typically plays the move h5. But instead black went for the immediate f5, f3, bishop to d7 now, b3, and now f4. He's trying to launch kingside pawn storm with g5, h5, g4, and so on. Queen to b1, preparing b4, g5, bishop f2, h5, b4, g4, c5. As we can see, there is a battle on flanks. Black is attacking white's king, while white is attacking black's queenside position. And at this point, black played the typical idea when executing the kingside attack. He played the move g3. By playing g3, he's basically sacrificing a pawn with with h takes g3, but he's willing to open the g file for the attack. He played the move queen to g6, white played c6, f takes g3, c takes d7. Black ignored the fact that he lost a piece and he continued putting pressure. He played the move bishop h6. He doesn't immediately take back on f2. He is also attacking the knight from d2. Knight c4, and now once again he refuses to take on f2. He considers that the g3 pawn is very powerful as it is, and he played the move bishop to f4. He's supporting the g3 pawn and he's preparing to play queen g5 and queen to h4. Knight a5, queen g5, bishop to a6, and now another strong move by black, the move bishop to e3. White cannot take the bishop because after queen e3, king h1, rook f4, the game is simply over. He played the move rook d1, bishop f2, king f1, pawn takes e6, and knight to c6. At this point, black's position is winning, but it looks so complicated, especially with this d7 pawn, which is so far in the position. Here black had only one idea that gave him a decisive advantage, and that idea was the move h4. So basically he's willing to play h3, and of course he's threatening h2, and if white decides to capture on h3, now he has a very powerful pass pawn on the g file. If the king wants to run away, we still play the move h3 with the same tactical ideas. Instead, in the game, he played the move bishop b6, which still maintains the advantage. For example, bishop b6, rook d3. But now, instead of playing the move h4, once again, he went for the move knight f6, which is a mistake. So, for example, once again, h4, d8, we can take on d8, queen c1, hopefully trading the queens, but of course black refuses, king e2, and h3, and black is having a great position. So as I said, instead he played the move knight f6, white played d8 queen, and suddenly this position wasn't so easy to fight for anything more than equality. Eventually white was close to win the position, but eventually the game ended in a draw. And the last game, it's a game between Kramnik and Kasparov. We will see how accurate this game was, even though it was a blitz game. We have once again the classical variation, the Petrosian, a5, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, knight a6, castle short, bishop d7, knight d2, knight c5, b3. And at this point, this is an interesting sacrifice, which it works if black plays the right way, and if black is accurate. It also offers a very uncomfortable position for white, And the sacrifice is knight takes e4. He sacrificed the queen. Knight takes e3. For only 2 minor pieces and a pawn at the moment. But the only good move for white in this position is knight to b1, which wasn't played in the game. Knight b1 offering some material back, for example knight a3, bishop a1, rook a1, rook e8, where black has a rook, a bishop and a pawn for a queen, which is quite enough based on material count. Black in this position is going to stay as solid as possible in the center while improving its position, maybe preparing some f5, f4, e3 in the future. But instead of playing knight to b1, white decided to play rook to c1, which is very natural at the first look. Takes on a2, rook a1, knight b4, bishop d1. So white is simply reacting to black's threats. e4, rook b1, rook e8, queen e3, and f5. So even if white has a queen, black is the one leading the game. We see that his pieces are working very well together. He's simply preparing to play g5 and f4 sooner or later. h4, rook f8, g3, rook e8, bringing the last piece into the game. King g2, knight d3, rook g1, and f4. He finally opens the position. After gf4, he takes the f4 pawn with the rook, targeting f2 and h4. White played h5, black played g5, rook f1. Now they repeated the position once. He played rook f8, f3, rook back to h4, f takes e4, knight f4 check, king g1, knight d3. All of black's pieces join the attack. White's king is in real danger. e5, knight takes e5, rook c1, rook h3, knight f3, g4, and at this point white didn't have much to do. He took on e5, rook e3, knight d7, knight h3, king g2, takes on f1, takes on f1, g3, king g2, and after knight f4, white simply resigned. So these are the 9 games that I wanted to share with you. These are some of the games that caught my attention and made me start liking the King's Indian. The position gets, as you can see, very dynamic, very interesting. You need to be very tactical aware of what's going on, but it's also very rich positionally. It's also about how pieces are coordinating themselves, how you maneuver the pieces into the attack, how you pawn break, and so on. So in the next chapter we'll begin talking about typical pawn structure and plans in the King's Indian. So see you then.